For more, I'm joined by Democratic strategist and consultant Simon Rosenberg and Alyssa Farah-Griffin, CNN political commentator and former White House communications director for Donald Trump. All right, I'm going to start with you, Simon. This Supreme Court decision on mifepristone, it basically leaves things as they were so that it is available to women around the country. But in a roundabout way, does this help Donald Trump, do you think?
Well, first of all, welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back. I don't think any of this helps Donald Trump. I mean, because Donald Trump will be in this election the person who's singularly responsible for stripping the rights and freedoms away of the women of the United States. I mean, women today, many tens of millions of women today in the United States have fewer rights and freedoms than women who live in Mexico or Brazil. I mean, there's been a huge backsliding in America on fundamental rights and freedoms. And what the president is still supporting is this notion that it's okay for politicians to decide about reproductive freedom and not a woman and her doctor. And so I think what's important for your listeners, your viewers to understand is that when he says he's okay with the Idaho law, which is the most restrictive law in the country, and if he's okay with that in Idaho, then he's also okay with it everywhere. And so Donald Trump is running, even though he doesn't, I think, totally understand this, he's running as an abortion extremist. And I think this is going to be a huge problem for him in this election, as it has been for Republicans in the last 2 years.
And I'm going to sort of go further with that. Alyssa, how are Republicans sort of responding to this? Yeah. It's almost like he's telling them, like, tread carefully, because this is an issue that we sort of have a problem with, although he boasts about being the president that put the Supreme Court in place to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Right, and this is a moment that Donald Trump's actually being politically savvy and picking up on the moment in the country where the Republican position on abortion is widely unpopular, because we've seen a number of red states, Ohio, Kentucky, Kansas, where ballot initiatives, constitutional amendments to preserve abortion rights have come up, and people have flocked out in droves, including Republicans, to vote for those rights. So he's absolutely right to say you, at minimum, need to say that you're for exceptions, but it's not so much a messaging problem. I think he would like to think that. It really is a facts problem, and it's the single greatest vulnerability for Republicans. My advice is always, if you say you're pro-life, you need to be pro-life through the duration of a child's life. You're for paid family leave, greater investment in foster care, investing in programs like WIC and TANF that help the most vulnerable mothers. That's where Republicans should be shifting the messaging, but they've not gotten their footing on this issue.
And the Democrats are trying to exploit that.
And I suspect Joe Biden is going to really hammer this in the debate against Donald Trump. He's going to make him own that he's responsible for Roe coming down.
All right, I do want to ask you about what happened when Donald Trump went to Capitol Hill for the first time since the January 6th attack. And we saw in 2021, these would be extraordinary pictures with him and Mitch McConnell sort of shaking hands and being chummy. Mitch McConnell, someone who is privately doesn't have a lot nice to say about Donald Trump, but you see Republicans there cheering him on. What was your takeaway from that meeting with Donald Trump there on Capitol Hill?
It was honestly jarring to see Donald Trump back at the Capitol after January 6th, a day that I was getting texts from people in the Capitol who felt like their life was at risk because of a mob that he incited to attack it. And then Mitch McConnell, somebody who was done with him after that day, as were so many other Republican leaders, to then come around 4 years later and embrace him. Also someone who's leveled deeply racist attacks against his own wife. I don't know why Mitch McConnell needs to do this. He's not running for leader again. He didn't need to show up and get that handshake photo with him, but it just shows one after the other Republicans are lining up behind Donald Trump because they see the power dynamic shifting. They see that he very well could be president-elect in 5 months.
Simon, what do you make of this, and how are Democrats going to potentially use this? Because everybody is circling the wagons. Clearly, they know he's going to be he's the presumptive nominee, and he will be the nominee for the party.
I think it's a reminder of the enormous risk the Republican Party is taking by rallying behind Trump. I mean, he's not just an insurrectionist who's somebody who is promising to end American democracy for all time if he gets into the White House in January of next year, but he's also a felon, and he's now liable for sexual assault. I mean, there's so much baggage that Trump has, and they are rallying behind him. But I think we're even beginning to see in polling. I mean, we had 5 polls in the last week showing the race shifting between 2 and 4 points to Joe Biden, which is a reminder again that the Republicans, I think, are taking an extraordinary risk, an unprecedented risk in backing a criminal, somebody who led an insurrection, somebody whose performance on the stump is wildly, far more erratic than it was in the past, and whose positions are more extreme and dangerous than they were in 2020. I mean, MAGA has been a failed politics. It failed in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2023, and they're doubling down on a politics that keeps losing. Republicans are taking an enormous political risk by getting behind Donald Trump.
And we're starting to see some of the ads from the Biden campaign hammering him on some of the many things that you mentioned there, Simon. I want to ask you about what our K-file dug up, which wasn't that hard to dig up, but they did go back and look, which is really interesting. One person who has been on the list for the potential vice president for Donald Trump is J.D. Vance, who has been coming out and speaking very positively about him, has basically all nice things to say now, but that was not always the case. And you look back at some of the things that he liked on his Twitter page, one of them was someone who called Donald Trump USA's most hated, villainous, douchey celebs. Like, he liked that back in 2016, 2017. And Simon's cracking up. But I mean, these are things that would really upset, for lack of a better word, Donald Trump. Do you see this hurting his chances?
So there was a time where this would hurt his chances, but I think J.D. Vance has gone so far in this about face of just being effusive for Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually loves that. He loves somebody who he gets to come to his side. So there's a way to work it to his advantage, but I think it just shows what a duplicitous person J.D. Vance is. He used to be on this network often saying what a threat Donald Trump was, and now he's come around to, despite the facts of January 6th and things only having gotten worse since when he said those things, is now his biggest supporter.
Simon, we have this juxtaposition here. Donald Trump was talking to Jake Paul, a YouTube star, who just signed a deal with the WWE, and they took this this picture that Donald Trump was sort of joking around as if he was going to fight with him. But when they sat down and they talked about some of the leaders of countries that are a real problem for the United States, North Korea, Putin, kind of praising them. At the same time, Joe Biden is at the G7 talking through some of these issues, for example, like Ukraine. This juxtaposition, do you think Democrats should be using some of this in their push towards the White House?
Listen, I think if you look over the last week, you see this incredible contrast that is beginning to emerge. I mean, we had last Friday one of the best jobs reports we've had in recent months. We had 50% more jobs created than was anticipated. The inflation report this week, inflation was 0 in May. Prices did not go up, and many prices actually went down, which is something that we've all wanted to happen now for many, many months. And then Joe Biden has been at the G7, and also he was last week at the D-Day celebrations, where he was representing our values and our interests in a very powerful way abroad. And you have a strong American president who's fighting for us abroad and here at home, making things better here at home, versus a guy who's spending most of his time trying to stay out of jail. And I think that this contrast is gotten much brighter in the last few weeks and will be central to how we're approaching the election this year, without a doubt.
Simon Rosenberg, Alyssa Farah-Griffin, it's always nice to see you. I'm glad to have you on set with me.
Back.
Simon, we got to get you in
Welcome
here.
back,
We got to get you in here so you can all be at the table and we can give you cookies and coffee. That's all we got. We appreciate your time, both of you.
I love cookies. Love cookies.
Excellent. We'll bring a lot. So do we, Kate.